My thumb's saying great. Okay. Don't think I got much sleep, but it was very much worth it.
They didn't go for a long-distance run, did they, like the rest of the Kenyans normally do?
No, just the dancing. So.
You were telling us, those who were with us on Tuesday, you were telling us that you set up this Catholic Facebook.
That's right,
well,
xt3.com.
xt3.
I work in the World Youth Day office with a few other young people, and we've set up a Facebook-style social network to connect all the pilgrims after World Youth Day that can keep in contact and also like engage in debates and discussions with other Catholics from all over the world.
So I take it that most of these pilgrims here don't have their laptop with them, and unless they go to a chat room. But what's been in the last, since we spoke to you Tuesday, what's been the response across the world?
There's actually been a surprising uptake during the week. We thought we weren't going to get many pilgrims joining simply because they won't have access to it. But I think what we've had is a lot of virtual pilgrims, people who couldn't make it to World Youth Day, who intended to or have been to past World Youth Days, and they've been following what's happening online. We've been recording some of the catechesis and youth festival talks, just the audio, and putting them online for our virtual pilgrims, and it's become very popular in the last week.
What's the most common question they've been asking the priest?
Generally, I mean...
You've got that spot, haven't you, Ask the Priest?
Yeah, we've got an Ask a Priest spot, and the most popular question is probably a lot to do with sexuality, but also theology as well, things that people haven't quite understood or haven't had explained before, questions about the Trinity or questions about why we do things in the Mass, which has been interestingly popular.
I know it's Sunday morning, we're about to go to Mass. What do they ask about sexuality?
Well, as far as sexuality, I suppose the most popular question is just like, sex before marriage and issues like that. But it's really interesting because not only are they asking a priest, they're engaging with other young Catholics from around the world who can comment and talk from personal experience about different issues. So it's really taking the debate on a whole new level, a level they haven't been able to talk about before.
Just the pictures we're looking at now, this again, as the Pope gets down the other end, really, of the racetrack here. You have been deeply involved, as Richard has, involved in this for so long, but have you been seriously surprised by what's happened? I mean, you obviously thought it was going to be good. Did you think it was going to be this good?
I have been actually very surprised. I think because I was working so closely with World Youth Day beforehand, we did have that initial stress, are we going to pull this off? How's it going to go? But just the weather was absolutely glorious, and the crowd, we couldn't have got a better bunch of pilgrims as far as I know, because they were really singing and dancing in the streets and really making Sydney alive. And as a young Catholic in Sydney, it's quite refreshing to see your faith so on display in such a beautiful way.
Well, that was one of the experiences that I had, on Tuesday after the opening Mass, went with a couple of seminarians to have dinner on the waterfront. And it was just incredible to see, Pope Benedict illuminated on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and Sydney had transformed itself. I mean, there was a fellow going past with a processional cross and a band of troubadours, singing hymns, and everyone was getting into it and very, very happy. And I don't know what it's going to be like this next week. But
you didn't think you were having a vision, did you, when you saw suddenly the Pope appear on the bridge?
Oh,
no, it was wonderful, absolutely terrific.
And for you, a moment, Mary, that you've had? Apart from last night?
Apart from last night, well, going to a lot of the talks actually, because I was recording for XT3, I got to see a lot more probably than most of the pilgrims did. And some of the youth festival talks, for example, they'll just be young Catholics who have come from all over the world, and they just come and share their story. An auditorium full of young people, and everyone's just gripped to the same, even though we're all from different backgrounds and different nationalities, we're all sharing the same story about the same faith. And I think for me that was very touching because, as I mentioned before, being a young Catholic in Sydney, it's very easy to forget that there are a lot of Catholics around the world. Sometimes you think, oh, we're the only ones. It's just my parish and a couple of older people. Yes. But it's just absolutely amazing to see it at that scope with so many young people.
And for your job as a priest, I mean, has it made your job easier, do you think? I mean, obviously, as the Cardinal and the Pope have said from the outset, they realise that part of your job is to try and get young Catholics back to Mass and back to church.
Absolutely. No, well, one of the amazing things about this, too, has been that it's been cool to be a priest. I had kids stop me to take photos.
Cool.
They were saying, oh, what do you want to take my photo for? It's cool being with a priest. And I was going, okay. I mean, some of the seminarians, too, it was funny. It was even cool wearing a cassock. I felt underdressed with my clergyman outfit. They were there with their cassocks running around giving high fives to the people going past. And it was really something. Yeah, no, it is. My great hope, though, is that they'll want to explore more and want to find out more.
I was going to ask you both, how do we sustain this? I mean, obviously, this is you confronted this long before World Youth Day began. It's one thing to get the euphoria, and we're pretty good at this, and the Pope's a rock star anyway, so he's going to pull him out, no matter who he is. But because he's, one of the most powerful men in the world, and he's also the most famous. But when this finishes tomorrow, when he goes home tomorrow, how do you sustain it? How do you get people to turn up on Sunday?
That will depend upon the young people themselves, I think. I mean, really, I see the way of the church being those young people who have had to put this together themselves. I think that's your experience, Mary?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think they'll continue building on that, rebuilding brick by brick, I think, with amongst young people. To see that joy, to see that hope, which is what the faith gives you. You look around here and you say, well, when we talk about the Catholic faith, this is what we mean.
Yep. And for you, what's your answer?
Well, I think, I'm going to have to go back and follow it up with my friends and the other pilgrims and so on. But one thing, apart from, of course, online, remaining connected and keeping everyone in touch, we really want to encourage people to take their faith, the faith that they've experienced this week, and turn it into action. So very much, I think, between the World Youth Day Office, xt3.com, and the various other ministries who are following up World Youth Day, we really want to, help young people get involved with social justice and community service, and really turn it into something ongoing which will change the rest of their lives and hopefully improve Sydney and the world, our entire generation.
Certainly the Pope asked for this, Richard, as well, didn't he, in terms of the social justice, to use your sport, to use your education,
Absolutely.
to use whatever skills you have.
Ordinary life, I think that's the thing, it's about living your faith in the ordinary circumstances of each day, really seeking to give that witness, not a showy witness or sort of, throwing placards up, but rather, living a good Christian life, to give off the witness of Jesus Christ in how you live your life. And that will really depend upon, this may sound a bit strange, but not upon what you do, but more upon opening yourself up to God, upon what's known as contemplative prayer. And there was that experience that we saw with the young people out on the Round Race course there with Benediction last night. There was silence. People were praying. And I think that is the key to that transformation on the outside.
But it's the sort of stuff that Hayden was talking about a little earlier, that Father Chris Riley is doing every day as well as one of those
colourful
strands in the church tapestry. But he's confronting that every day, and I suspect, Mary, that young people can relate to that. It's one thing to flog them with the catechism. It's another thing to see good works being done and with the right reason.
That's it, absolutely. And I think with examples, with Father Chris Riley and other speakers who have come up during the week, in the youth festival events, I think they can at least take little messages and learn how to apply it to their everyday lives. So even if it means doing their study better and doing their work better, I think that's really a message that they can take and be ongoing.
I know it's a really simple example, but just yesterday between the Mass in the morning and last night we were stuck at the racecourse because of the crowds, and I was watching as they arrived here, and it's a very simple example of what Hayden was talking about, but there was a young man in a wheelchair, and he came to the very track where the Pope is going around now, this dirt track, and wheelchairs don't go very well on a dirt track, and he was on his own at that stage struggling, and I saw some young pilgrims from somewhere, I don't know where they were from, I was just looking down from above, and they picked up the wheelchair. There were about 4 of them and took it across over there. Now, it's a very Christian thing to do, and we'd expect everyone to do it. There was no hesitation. It just went on. That's been the moment. That's been the emotion, hasn't it? Of what can we do to help?
It's the fruit of faith.
Yeah.
I mean, it's love, faith, which produces that charity, which produces that love. But once again, I think it really does come down to that personal relationship that you try to foster with God in your heart. And then that will always, the closer you come to God, the closer you will come to others. That was the experience of the mother of Jesus, of Mary. She was, if you read in the Gospels, you see she was always very, very into service. She was very aware of the details. The wedding feast at Cana, while the apostles are having a great time, probably drinking the place dry, Mary was the one who was able to really see the need, and she took action, by turning to Jesus.
Drinking the place dry because of the Blessed Sacrament today. I'd read this morning 120 litres of wine, I think,